Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Seed World's Giant Views. My name is Alex Martin, and today I'm joined with a face the seed industry might not recognize, but you'll definitely want to hear from. Please meet Richard Harknett, who is a professor of political science and director of the School of Public and International Affairs at the University of Cincinnati. He also is author of Cyber Persistent Theory, Redefining National Security in Cyberspace, and was also a scholar in residence at the U.S. Cyber Command in the National Security Agency. So he's got quite a reputation behind him. He is joining us today to talk to us a little bit more about cybersecurity and how businesses can deal with them. So Richard, it's absolutely wonderful to have you on with us today. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to have a great conversation.
Happy to join, and thanks for the invitation, Alex.
Perfect. Well, as I mentioned, today Richard is going to help join us to help us as an industry understand something I'm sure every single business has struggled with: cybersecurity. Cybersecurity means you're ensuring that you're protected against the criminal or unauthorized use of electronic data, which if you've ever had a spam email sent to your junk mail, you've dealt with cybersecurity. But I don't want to take up most of the time today. Richard is certainly more of the expert than I am, so we're going to dive in. Now, Richard, I know, as I've mentioned, I'm fairly certain every business, even just every individual person, has had issues with cybersecurity. Can you tell us, why is cybersecurity becoming such a problem for businesses nowadays?
So, in a nutshell, Alex, there was that old famous Willie Sutton quote. Why do you rob banks? And he answered, that's where the money is. The interesting thing about Willie Sutton, in 1933, he was caught trying to actually rob the Corn Exchange and Trust Bank in Philadelphia. So appropriate for us to be talking about seed and cybercrime now. But the first primary motivation is that there is money to be gained on the criminal side. And then we have to recognize that there's a whole other layer with regard to national cybersecurity, in which we have adversaries of the United States, competitors of the United States at the state level, who recognize that part of our economic strength flows from the efficiencies in agriculture. So the degree to which you might be able to disrupt agriculture across the globe, not just in the United States, has a factor in how states compete with each other. So we have two layers there: profit making and national security motivations.
Perfect. No, that makes a lot of sense to me. And, I don't think about it very often, but you're right. If you can disrupt agriculture, then you can disrupt, I think, a lot of systems in a country. Now, there are so many different problems that can pop up, from spam email links to spoofing. I know our business has had some issues with some spoofing from our boss, but what makes a business a likely target for cybersecurity issue? I mean, you already brought up profit, money to be gained, but is there anything else we need to watch out for?
Well, I think that it flows from that motivation, Alex, right? So the bottom line is, do you have anything of value? Well, I would hope, if you're a successful business, that you do. So one of the things you have to think about is, what's that value core? Is it intellectual property? Is it the way you manage your production facilities? What is your comparative advantage? That's your crown jewel. That's your value. And if it's valuable to you, it's valuable to some other nefarious actor in two ways. One, can they actually disrupt, interfere with your ability to extract that value? So if your value is in your production efficiency, right, and I can disrupt that, this is what we find with ransomware attacks, for example. What they're going after there is leveraging the fact that if I disrupt this most valuable aspect of your business, in this case, let's just say production efficiency, then I have you over the barrel. And if I have you over the barrel, then maybe you're going to pay that ransomware. So it's an extortion approach, right, to making illicit profit. If it's more in the data, and that's where we were sort of over the last decade, that the if you will, criminal cyber market was really about exfiltrating data and then selling it on the black market. That takes a couple of extra steps. And so what we see right now is a decline in relative decline. It's still there. But an expansion is probably a better way to look at it on this disruption type of an attack, this extortion attack of interfering with what is valuable for you. So, so you're a likely target if I can do that at scale, right? So if you're profitable and therefore I look at you as a cyber criminal and say, I can extract profit from you, you'll pay that ransom, then you're a likely potential target.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Well, and I know, Richard, you also, I think this question is going to be a continuation of what we've been talking about, but I know you also helped put together the cybersecurity guide, which for those of you that don't know, there's a wonderful guide called the Cybersecurity Guide out there that you can Google, and it has fantastic information about cybersecurity risk. And there's also a portion of it that specifically looks at cybersecurity risks in agriculture and about how shutting down massive food production or distribution businesses can create really big advantages for cyber criminals. But so we've kind of tackled this motivation behind just in general attacking businesses. But what would be the ploy for shutting down certain aspects of agriculture businesses, Richard?
Yeah. So again, it's at the criminal level, it's a scale issue. So I'll give you an example of a different critical infrastructure, but one that agriculture relies on. We had this Colonial Pipeline attack about a year or so ago. And what most people don't know about that attack is it was not actually at the operational level. The malware was not delivered and disrupted the pipelines. Colonial shut its own pipelines down. Mm-hmm. And the reason they did that is because they actually didn't have their network segmented, which is a fairly best practice cybersecurity tactic. And so the attackers came in on the administrative side. They tried to shut down the administrative portion of Colonial. And Colonial was worried that that malware was actually going to get over into the operational side and encrypt their operations. So they intervened and shut down their operating network. That's what led to the disruption and people, long lines of people waiting for gas in the North Carolina area. So one of the things that, and what was interesting is that the criminal gang that was involved in this overseas, attributed to Eastern Europe, Russian-based, they actually came back and said, whoa, sorry, we didn't mean to do that. They kind of overshot. And it was a really good snapshot, though, of how cyber criminals think. They're trying to stay below the level of disruption that would bring in actors like the U.S. Department of Justice or U.S. Cyber Command, right? If they're going to make money, they want to keep making money. So they're going to, carve this out at little piece by little piece. So we did have a disruption of a meat package processing plant as well last year. And that was the first really big public at scale disruption on the ag food side of things. So again, it's profit motive or national advantage at the state level. But one of the things you have to recognize, Alex, is this notion of interconnectivity, right? So as you leverage cyberspace, what is cyberspace? It's this global interconnected network of networked computers, right? That ultimately that we're leveraging. Interconnectedness means that you are in constant contact with not only your business partners, and not only the potential customers that you have, but you're also in constant contact with adversaries, with other companies that are competitors to you. That's what it means to be in an interconnected space. So we can't take this notion that, well, no one's ever going to find us, right? Cyberspace is vast, and you can get at each other through different means. So there was a big Target store attack a number of years ago. And the attack came through the HVAC supplier of Target stores. So it was the HVAC air conditioning subcontractor who was actually exploited. And once they exploited that, they realized, oh, we actually can get to Target's point of sale, like literally every time you swiped a card, right? So you don't tend to think about air conditioning and cybersecurity attacks at the credit card level, but that's how those things got. That's how that operation went because of this interconnectedness. So the vulnerability, the bottom line is, Alex, the vulnerability is vast. So there is this inherent dilemma.
Yeah.
Agriculture needs to leverage this technology for greater productivity gains, right? Crop yield efficiencies, water management, all of these gains that we're going to get from leveraging the Internet of Things, connecting more and more devices. But as you do that as a business, as you understand that as a sector, you also have to understand that you're taking on all of the vulnerabilities that are built into this interconnected space.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought up some of those more recent examples, because I certainly remember the pipeline shutdown. I remember the Target breaches as well. So I know all of our readers probably do as well. I was one of the people who had to go sit in lines in Virginia waiting for gas one day because of that. It was quite an experience. But since we've established that there are some vulnerabilities that come into play when you start working in the cyberspace, and I know companies in agriculture are really looking at cool ways to have new technologies, new data that they can access from farms. What is your advice for businesses looking to up their security game online and maybe take out some of those vulnerabilities that they might experience?
Yeah, so that's a great question, Alex. So the first step in this is that you have to be just more intentional about your adoption of this technology. So just a few days ago, give you another, there's a hot off the press, if you will, example. CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure, the Cyber and Infrastructure Security Agency under DHS, put out an alert. There is a GPS tracker, Mycondis. About 1.5 million of these devices have been sold. And pretty much I can remote control in and shut down the vehicle that it's running. So if you've got tractors that are running off of, remote GPS, and my understanding is that something like 70% of U.S. agriculture is using those types of devices. Some countries like Australia are nearly at over 90%. I can actually remote control in. I can cut off fuel. I could redirect and cut across your crops and destroy crops. That's a vulnerability that a state actor might use if I want to disrupt agriculture writ large. All the way down, and this is the problem we have, Alex, is that a very, a hacktivist group or even down to individuals can do that as one-offs. Mm-hmm. The problem with this device, it was manufactured in China. CISA reached out to China when they discovered the vulnerability. about 6 months ago, and they've done nothing about it. Right? Now, is that vulnerability there because they want it there, or it's just cost prohibitive? These are like 25, $50 type devices. That's why so many people are buying them. They're cheap and inexpensive. But you have to actually, as a business, start to do some, can't just go on Amazon and buy things, right? You have to actually do some due diligence. Where in the supply chain do they sit? Are they foreign owned? Are they in your country? Why is that important, Alex? Is because if you have a government agency that's able to find the vulnerability and says to the company, hey, you have to do something about it. If it's not a domestic company, they don't have any legal authority over them. So you don't have, as a company, what are you going to do? You're going to pull these devices out, or are you going to do a risk management and say, I'm just going to live with it and hope that nobody does that? I'm not a big fan of hope as a strategy, as a business plan, right? And so that's part of what you need to do. You need to actually start to understand where the vulnerabilities are, assume vulnerability. So what happens in these kinds of cases? So am I going to buy more domestic tech? That's one way to look at it. What kind of contracts do I have if I'm using web services for my data collection? What backups do they have? Are they prone to disruption? If they are disrupted, do they have any obligation to pay you back for that disruption? This is part and parcel of what you need to do in your contracting. As you leverage IoT, the Internet of Things, as we go to sort of precision agriculture, great promise, but you have to understand you're layering it on a vulnerable system.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense, to be perfectly honest, Richard. And so I just have one more question for you, I think, today. Since you've identified and said that, we really need to be on the lookout and be able to see when these vulnerabilities are appearing. What should businesses be on the lookout for when it comes to a cybersecurity breach, and how can you identify them? I feel like even sometimes the spoofing of emails can be hard to identify, but so how do you identify these bigger vulnerabilities?
Yeah, so it does start at the individual level, as you noted. Most breaches, Alex, come from human authorization of unauthorized access. So it is the clicking of a malware link. There is a trend towards, right now, there's invoice malware. So you're sending invoices to whoever handles the invoice in your company. They tend to want to, hey, I want to pay that invoice. I want to get it out. And there's malware embedded in that invoice. So you've got to do simple things. Scroll over any links and make sure that they are who they say they are, right? Is it pointing to the actual company who's your supplier? Or is it actually got a .ru or some other place that was like, oh, no, that's not where they're located. So it does require to have employees have cyber awareness, but all the way up into the owners of the businesses. Again, you don't need to become cybersecurity experts, right? But what you do need to do is build in resiliency into your business by assuming that cyber attack is possible. So again, it's that supply chain contract, it's the insurance that you might have, those types of things. Bottom line is, Alex, you wouldn't walk around just telling people like randomly in a restaurant your trade secrets, right?
Right.
Like, this is how I make, this is how my business makes money, right? Let me tell you about that. But if you're not digitally secure, your trade secrets are in fact available, right? Now, somebody may not discover that vulnerability and may not take your trade secrets or your practices. But because you're interconnected in a vulnerable space, if you don't build this in as a business practice, and I think that's what I'll leave you with, Alex, is that we have to stop thinking about cybersecurity as a trade-off. So, a lot of people will go to, okay, yeah, but that's a cost, right? That's going to bring about either a financial cost or less efficiency. And we got to move away from that mindset across all our sectors, but particularly a sector that is now embracing connectivity at a larger scale in ag. We have to understand it as a business practice. There's no business. Agriculture is not going to be successful in the 21st century if it's not connected, if it's not leveraging the digital space, right? So it's a business practice, not an add-on. You have to assume that I have to be secure in order to run my business, because if you're not secure and you get disrupted, you've got no business. So ultimately, it's about being proactive. You noted my book. I appreciate that. The whole idea of cyber persistence is that you have to anticipate the exploitation of vulnerability before that exploitation occurs. And at the state level, we've got national security elements that are trying to do that for us. But at the business level, it comes down to being more intentional about the products you're buying, the supply chain that you're plugging yourself into, and the access that you give your employees to this interconnected space. Pull all those things together, and we'll have a more digitally secure environment.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Richard. I think that is wonderful advice to leave off on. Hopefully everyone at home got to take something away. I know I certainly did, because I think I just learned more about cybersecurity than I probably have ever learned in my 27 years of being present on the internet. So thank you so much, Richard. We hope everyone has a wonderful day, and hope you enjoyed this Giant Views, and we'll see you all next time. Thanks, everyone.